Hey guys, welcome to another edition of We Are Now Legit Dealmaker Nation. I'm Josh Cohen, that's Jeff Walsh, and today
Hey.
we're live with the one and only Lester Ifill III. He is the CEO and president of LFH Investment Group. If you don't know Lester, this man transitioned from Wall Street to killing the game in real estate. He is the wholesaler in DC. He's always bringing the spiciest, juiciest deals right to your doorstep, and not only it happens weekly like clockwork. So with that, Lester, thanks so much for joining us on a rainy, dark, cloudy Saturday afternoon here in Washington, D.C.
Oh man, that's a nice introduction. Thank you for having me, sir.
Lester, tell us how it all happened. How did you get into real estate? You're working on Wall Street, you're a logistics analyst. You know,
Yeah.
here you are in DC now doing real estate in the game 5 years. How did it all go down?
Organically, I started, like I said, I started out, like you said, I started out as a logistics analyst on Wall Street, and ended up taking a different position. My wife was not happy with her current position. I enjoyed my job, or I enjoyed my coworkers. I didn't enjoy the work that I was doing, and we literally picked up in the fall, and actually in the winter of 2014, and moved to DC and started jobs as family teachers for a company called Boys Town, and we wanted to give back. So we were taking care of a lot of at-risk youth in DC. And as we were doing that, one of the tasks of the job was to continuously ride around and take these kids to their different appointments, pick them up from their houses. And my wife and I started to notice, wow, look at the real estate here. Look at the neighborhoods, and we started to notice the change that was similar to something that we saw living in New York. We saw the change from, the old Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, to now Stuyvesant Heights and the things that happened in New York. And we started to notice those changes and said, man, we should get in on this. And so anyway, we did that job for about a year and a half. And then my wife got pregnant with my third child, and it was at-risk pregnancy. And because of all the stress with the kids, we ended up leaving that job. And the same year, my father passed and left us a nice little inheritance. That's legacy stuff, thank God. So I used that and bought my first investment property in Northwest. The address is 618 Jefferson Street, Northwest. And it went terrible. It went terrible. The deal almost fell apart. We almost lost our shirts in a sense. We ended up deeding the property back to the lender to get out of the debt. And from that, and during that, my wife had decided that she didn't want to ever see anything like that happen again. So she went and got her license. So my wife has been licensed since 2016, and actually 2017. And I just started my class, my license. But anyway, that's how we got into real estate. Was a failed deal that we wanted to make right. We wanted to educate other potential investors on what to do and what not to do, and how to partner and how not to partner. And literally just kind of dove in. And we've been going strong ever since.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Jeff?
I mean, that's as clear and cut as it gets. We just kind of dove in.
Cool. What you have to fail to move forward, Lester. You joined Boys Town, or you worked for Boys Town. What made you stay in real estate? You have to hustle a lot, and you're doing a great job. Your first deal, can you tell us a little bit about your first deal?
Sure. So it was a single family property on Jefferson Street. It was owned by some sisters who had decided to move out of the district. They were elderly and they wanted to sell the property. And we bought it at auction, and we started the process of flipping it. We partnered with a contractor who we thought, had the integrity that we needed to get us to the end. We put a little too much faith in that person, and around the second year of not sold the property, I kind of had to step in and take over and kind of get us out of the project, because he was doing, he made it seem like he was a little bit more experienced than he was.
Right.
And I think he kind of was like a deer in headlights when he didn't know what to do, and he just kind of stopped answering his phone. And, you know, that just caused us to have to, you know, thank God I left myself as the managing member of the LLC. I didn't leave him with all of the power. So I was able to get us out of the deal and deed the property back to the lender, maintain the relationship, and save us from all having to file for bankruptcy. So that's how my first deal went. And from there, it was literally, you know, sitting in front of my computer, day in and day out, learning the best practices for real estate until I stumbled upon wholesaling.
Great.
So Lester, are you self-taught then? Like, or have you had mentors, or how did you get into wholesaling?
100% self-taught. No mentors, no gurus. I didn't pay a dime for anyone's courses. I Googled contracts, you know, I downloaded contracts from the internet and read them through front to back to learn the language. And, you know, again, my background is analytical. So every decision that I try to make is based on information. And I learned how to evaluate a deal based on what an investor would need. And because I had went through the experience of, you know, starting on the investment side, I kind of had a slight knowledge, that there was less of a knowledge barrier to what I thought, you know, to what needed to happen in order to sell a deal. And then I started to meet guys like you guys that had their own Facebook groups and meetups. And I did do a couple of meetups, not many, but I did a lot of Facebook learning. I did a lot of Facebook, you know, marketing and networking. That's what I would say, networking. I have a ton of real estate professionals as friends on real estate on Facebook that I made a point to get in contact with and learn from.
Gotcha. Are there any resources you could point folks to today that you would recommend? Any sort of online resources or books you would recommend?
One of the main books that got me involved, anybody would know this. Everybody's read this book anyways, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was a big motivation. Resources that we utilize every day: Instagram, Facebook. I mean, you know, typing in certain hashtags and following different groups like the DMV Deal Makers. There's the Baltimore groups. You know, there's Virginia groups. There's groups in pretty much every state that you want to do business with. The first thing you should do is, you know, if you want to do business in any state, the first thing you should do is check to see what the Facebook group is doing in that area, and follow a lot of the people that are active in that group and buying in that group, and get to know them, reach out to them, DM them, you know, let them know who you are, introduce yourself. And I think that's been the biggest help for me as just a wholesaler in general. And I don't consider myself just a wholesaler, but that is my primary source of income. I have flipped properties since that first deal, project manage as well. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. But as far as resources, you know, I think the internet is the biggest one. If you have the wherewithal to sit in front of your computer and actually do the research, you can teach yourself how to do this business. There's going to be things that you need to learn from others, but the initial, you know, a good outline can start on the internet.
I have to say, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know if you've seen his recent comments, but he's taking heat, and rightly so. He's taking heat for like very poor choice of words regarding the recent like protests going on. I think folks out there are going to have to find a new mentor. So, guys, come to DMV Dealmakers, come to Dealmaker Nation, because we do it right over here. We're not putting out that poor content, you know, as of late. Awesome advice there, Lester. If you guys have a question, by the way, we're here with Lester Ifill III. If you got a question, please post it up on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Jeff, do we have any questions from the audience at this point?
Not yet. I don't see one.
Lester, if you could you walk us through? I mean, we got a lot of folks who've never done a deal before watching you right now. Could you walk us through like how, you got your first wholesale deal. How did that look? How did it go? How did you get the deal? How did you put under contract? How did that process look?
Okay, so there's two things that we're talking about in that question. If you're talking about my first deal, my very first deal was actually not a property that I had under contract. It was actually a JV deal.
Oh,
So
wow.
I say to most wholesalers, the quickest way for you to get a deal done is to do a JV deal where you bring one side of the deal, whether it be the contract or the buyer, so that you can kind of work with experienced wholesalers or investors to get your deal done. My first contract deal, and I want to shout out, I'm going to shout out some guys in here. I don't know if they're watching, I can't tell. But Brocar Properties. Brocar Properties was my first DC. I'll say my first deal in DC. My first DC deal was Brocar Properties that I had under contract. They bought a property that I had under contract at auction, and that's Brocar Properties is Corey Jones and Ashif El Shazi, who are both members of the DMV Dealmakers Group as well. So those guys do a lot of volume. They build some really nice houses and flip some really nice properties. They hold properties. Those guys are like what I want to be when I grow up. And they bought my first deal, and they would stand up about it 100%. Corey's a tough negotiator, but they wheeled me down on my assignment fee. But when it was time, they made sure to sign where they needed to sign. So that was kind of how my first deal went. What was can you reiterate the question? I want to make sure I answered the whole question.
So it sounds like on your first deal, someone had the deal under contract and you actually found a buyer.
Correct. Yes. My very first deal was a JV deal with Kathy London. My first official deal was Kathy London from, I guess the name of her company is Revitalize Baltimore now. I'm shouting a lot of people out. Sorry if I shouldn't be naming you guys, but she was the first person that I did a deal with in the Maryland area. Although I had done so much research, I'm sure it didn't seem like it to her because I had kind of gone through all the motions to know exactly what I needed to do. But that was a JV deal. I brought the buyer to a property that she had. I'm not even sure it was her contract or not, but it was a multiple wholesaler JV deal, which was my very first deal.
Sweet.
Nice. Lester, how do you find your deals now in this competitive market? I mean, there's a lot of people out there trying, and telling all kinds of, trying to get the deal. So, I mean, it's a real competitive market right now. Has been for the last 2-3 years. So how do you find properties? Because I see you're putting out deals 2 to 3 times a week a lot of times.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, when things are hot. I have a partner. We both look for properties all the time, and he's the guy with the mouth. He's able to get on the phone and close up the customers. So I have a partner who's really good at that. I don't want to give his name because I'm not sure if he wants me to, but he's an agent as well. Actually, he's an agent in DC, and we've done a lot of business together, and it's worked out. I would say finding deals is really a matter of where your comfort zone is, and where what access you have. So if you're a wholesaler and you don't have access to the MLS, expired listings, active listings, things like that, it's going to be a little tougher. You got to get creative. Before I had access to the MLS, I would use the DC or Maryland tax sale list, because that's a list of people that may have some type of motivation to sign a contract. Obviously, we're here to help. See, that's another thing is wholesalers. Sometimes we get a bad name because sometimes we get a little greedy, and we need to change that narrative by making sure that the first thing that we want to do with any potential client is to help them. We want to make sure that we're helping them out of a scenario. So I try to approach each situation that way, that it will be somewhat lucrative for me, but it will make sure that it helps the situation for that seller. And there's no better place to find deals than the updated tax sale list. I convert the list to an Excel file, and I go through line by line, evaluate each property that I see. I'm a whiz at Excel because of my previous experience with it. So I kind of am able to shoot out the duplicates and continue to analyze. And what comes back, if it comes back positive with a contract, you guys see it. Well, let's put it like this: if it's a really good deal, you guys never see it.
Right.
I have guys on there that they take it very quickly sometimes. But if you see me post a deal, it's because it's something that may be a little tighter. I know some of the investors the experienced investors in the DMV Deal Makers Group can handle it. A lot of them are sharks, and we'll still whittle you down. but you have to respect that. That comes with the game, and you have to be able to push through that. And it's been positive.
Lester, it's interesting. Like, everybody gets into real estate in a different angle. Like, everybody brings a different skill set. It sounds like you're definitely using your Wall Street analyst mind to sort of source deals. And it sounds like you found a partner who negotiates the deal for you. Where did that transition happen? How did you set up that framework? When did you find that partner? It sounds like you sort of realized early on that maybe negotiation wasn't your primary skill set.
Right.
Talk us through how this whole sort of team, evolved.
Yeah, I'll be honest. That happened organically as well. We met on a deal. He had a deal, and I brought a buyer to it, and we did that once or twice. And we decided that because we like how each other works, you focus on this, and I'll focus on that. And it just happens kind of organically when you meet someone that you can. It's the biggest thing is trust, right? You're gonna have apprehensiveness when you don't really know someone, you don't really know who knows them, and once you start to kind of do a couple of deals with a person and you reveal more information, you kind of test. Sometimes I'll test. Sometimes I'll send an email and see if and leave a buyer's email on there and see if he'll contact my buyer behind my back. And those are the kinds of things that you kind of have to do to get around that, so you can build that trust and say, okay, this is somebody that I can partner with because he knows his lane, I know mine. He knows his strength, I know mine. He picks up where I lack, I pick up where he lacks, and move forward. And then I don't want to exclude my wife either, because my wife is a phenomenal agent. She's killing it right now. She's out showing her new clients properties. Has a couple of closings lined up this week. When it's slow for me, it's hot for her. So we kind of help each other out. I decided to get my license for that very reason, because I want to be able to help her a little more. I still want to focus on the investment side, but I do want to have the legitimacy of the license to continue to move us forward. Yeah.
Nice. Lester, I know you're a tough negotiator also. Real estate investing. Yeah, real estate investing requires some negotiation, throughout the process. What is your negotiating style like? And what is is there a typical seller conversation? I heard something yesterday where somebody said that people sell their homes to people they know, like, and trust.
Right.
Sometimes it's 6 months down the road that you buy the house, or get the house under contract. It's not always the first time, second time. Follow up is key. So,
correct.
Basically, if you can give us a little bit of your negotiating style and what a typical seller situation looks like, a conversation the first time.
Yeah, first time, it's I'm very informal when I introduce myself. I want them to call me by my first name. I'm respectful, especially when I know that the seller may be elderly, so I'm respectful. I call them Mr. or Mrs. I don't call people by their first names. That's just something that I was raised on. I don't do that. I call you guys, even though Jeff, you guys are senior to me, but I still call you by your first name. But normally I would be calling you Mr. Mr. Josh, Mr. Jeff, things like that.
Right.
But again, I'm very informal when I introduce myself to sellers. I try to present myself as a member of the community. I'm not here to hurt you, harm you, to do anything but help your situation. And if that help makes me money, then so be it. And I've gotten some contracts over other situations or that where others have not. Sometimes because I may go up a little higher. It's something. At the end of the day, it usually comes down to money. But I've had several experiences where people have said, I went with you because I didn't like the other guy. Just kind of, he was pushing me. He wanted me to sign right away, and so I would say that my negotiating style is a little bit more laid back and informal to build that trust. And I've had people sign with other people, go on the contract with them, and then find out that person can't close, and then they're calling me like, "Oh, I should have went with you.
Right.
I did. The only reason I didn't was because he offered more, but I should have went with you. You were so nice when we met, and blah blah blah." And it happens several different ways, and it's literally case by case by negotiation style. But one of the main things I try to do is just make sure that I present myself informally and build trust.
It's important.
That makes sense. Hey, Lester, yeah. I see you just like Jeff does. I see you doing deals, multiple deals every week in DC. And DC is one of the most challenging markets, I think, maybe in the country. It's very competitive. There's a lot of extra factors there like TOPA and tenants and maybe bad title. What has been your biggest challenge working in DC? Maybe you could even give us examples of them, and how do you overcome them?
Sure. Right now, we have a property under contract in Trinidad that's owned by 6 relatives, 6 siblings, one of whom is deceased. The other and all the other children, all the other siblings have federal tax liens against their names. So, this is an example of a typical, no, I wouldn't say typical, but I don't even know the word. I guess a challenging deal that you just kind of have to push through. You let the title company do what they do. They've got to set up a trust. They've got to do all kinds of things that clear the so that you can get to clear title insurance, and you just kind of have to push through it. The market in DC is so hot that you literally have to do whatever you can to push a deal to the closing table, because the moment you step away, there's somebody right behind you ready to take it over. And I've lost more deals than I've closed. I'll say that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it's like 50-50 in terms of closing a deal in DC, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, you can any little thing can stop a closing, right? I mean, COVID hit us with a backhand that none of us were really expecting. That kind of, the market was already like it was kind of hot, but investors were a little bit shaky, but lenders were still lending before COVID. And then once COVID hit, the lenders started to pull back, and that forced the guys with the cash to the forefront of the conversation, because everybody that needs to go through a lender had to kind of tighten up on what they did, because the lender did the same. So yeah, 50-50 is a good. You could easily lose a deal in DC at a 50-50 ratio.
I've seen deals in DC that you just can't close because you can't get clear title to the property no matter what. And those properties just sit there for years.
They just sit. I had another deal that we didn't realize that there was a sister involved that nobody knew about, that just like showed up at the last minute and said, "Help, sorry, we're challenging the power of attorney," and it's a mess. It's a mess, So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that, and you kind of have to expect that with the older population.
Sure.
People are passing away and leaving a lot of real estate to either.
I guess one last thing on the subject, like as far as TOPA goes, are there any tips you could give folks to how to manage the TOPA situation? Have you had to pay tenants off, or?
Yeah, I've had to give cash. I've had to give cash for keys in certain aspects. I would just say it's going to be that in that sense, you're kind of you don't know who you're dealing with. You just got to kind of flip the coin and hope that you're dealing with somebody reasonable, because I've seen people ask for $75,000 to leave a house.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, like, and you're like, well, that deal's dead. That's the dead deal, because what are you gonna do? You're not gonna even to help. It's like that's not helping. That's not even helping at this point. So you're gonna, yeah.
They've changed the TOPA rules a little bit, right, in the last like 1 or 2 years? Has
Yes,
has it gotten any easier in your opinion?
Well, thank God, my last several deals I haven't had to deal with TOPA. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert on it. I do know that I try to let my wife kind of step in and advise me when there's a TOPA issue and how to handle it, and what addendums need to be written, and what the seller needs to have in writing in order to proceed. And thank God I haven't had to deal with too much of it, but I have heard of some horror stories. Yeah.
I gotcha.
There you go. So Lester, how does your business look now? Like who does what? You have your wife who's a realtor, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your partner who's a negotiator, and you're the analyzer, right?
Everything else. Yeah, I'm everything else.
Everything else?
I'm the GC, I'm everything.
Do you hire any virtual assistants or anything?
No. I do it all.
Or do you need to add people to your team?
I will need to at some point. Absolutely. If I want to grow, if I want to change, I want to move into less active investing. I want to move into some more passive stuff. I'm following the footsteps of a lot of the investors that I see in these groups. Let me do a couple more shout outs beside Brocard Properties, LA Property Partners with Sabrina, Irene Dubravina, tons of guys. Robert Kraus, who's going around the country, you know, in an RV because he can, you know.
Right.
I'm watching you guys. I'm watching you guys, and I'm learning from you guys, and I'm shooting for those types of goals. You know, the Terry Royces and the Chris Mancinis, and all these people that are, you know, that are the Jessica Perkins. All these investors that I'm watching and seeing them build their businesses, I know that I'm going to have to add members to my team in order to kind of step it up to those levels.
Nice. I think Lester, if you're not already there, you're well on your way already.
Thank God. Thank you. I'm trying.
I got to ask you. So
great job.
Like, I like to talk about things like the deal cycle. So talk me through your sort of deal cycle for folks out there. Like, you source the leads. You get a list of really hot seller leads.
Right.
How do you normally reach out to these people? What
call them right up. I mean, if I own some, call and email. My very last deal, was via email. I found the seller because they didn't have a phone number listed, but they had an email, and I emailed and I got the contract and was able to, you know, to work that out. But the deal cycle is more so, you know, pull the lead, pull the list. Like I said, DC, Maryland tax sale list. I try to analyze the property first to see what that seller may be up against, because my wife has access to, you know, the public record information as a realtor. We can look at how much the seller may owe. We can look at how much equity they may have, and, you know, when they purchase the property. And then I'll usually take a ride around the area and look at the area to see if it may be some type of area that they might consider selling in. Some of these sellers are smart. They're like, listen, my area is being gentrified. I'm not leaving. I'm going to wait. You know, they want $1 million when their house is only worth 500, and they'll let you know. Right. So, and I want to know that before I waste a bunch of time, right? So I kind of want to look at what they owe and analyze. Again, my analytical mind is always going to look for as much information as possible so that I can make a decision. And then once I'm able to actually get that person on the phone, it's just a matter of follow up. If they're not ready to sign today, that's perfectly fine. You will hear from me in the next 2 months, you know, every month until you are ready. You'll hear from me or my company at that point.
So Lester, your primary outreach then on like a first touch, is it cold calling then?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
Gotcha.
I'm 9 times out of 10. Driving for dollars gets me to the lead. And then once I've analyzed the property and if I'm able to do the quick skip trace and find the number, I'll call you right while I'm out in front of your house. You know, can you
give us like for those out there, a lot of folks are new. Can you give us an idea of what that first call looks like? You know, if you're reaching out to Jeff here, could you give us just a 30-second pitch of what that first phone call would look like?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot.
I hate to put you on the spot, but
no, it's fine. I wing it. It'd be, hey Jeff, how you doing? My name is Lester Ifill. You know, I'm an investor in DC. I have partners that are interested in this area. We have been, you know, I'll bring up a couple of properties that I may have sold in the area to a certain investor. We just completed this one. We sold that one. This one we're interested in your property. If you're interested in selling, let us know. If not, let us know if we can help in any other way. If you'd like any updates, I can put you in touch with the right contractors. And then it's referral game, right? It's like, I want to make sure that I give them any aspect that I can so that they're able to feel like I want to help. And then, you know, after that, it's all follow up. I wish I could give you a full understanding of what the conversation looks like, but
that was good, man. I like that. So if you get voicemail, do you leave a voicemail or do you just try to get them live on the phone? What's your technique there?
I try to go phone call, voicemail, text message, email, and then follow up.
So the whole gamut. You leave voicemail, text, live call.
Yeah. Of course. Okay. Because a lot of times you're dealing with old school people too that, you know, they want to hear. They don't know. I have a 516 area code on my phone, so you may not answer my phone when you see it ring on your, you know, on your either your cell phone or your home.
So you're following up over 2 months. How many people sign up on the first phone call, would you say?
Oh, very little. Very little people sign up on the first call. Yeah.
And if they tell you no on the first phone call, they tell you they're interested, but not now, probably in the next couple months.
Yeah, that's kind of how you gauge it. You want to find out, you know, most people that don't want you to call them will say, don't call me anymore. Yeah. I'm not interested.
Yeah.
And at that point, we strike them off the list. We're not going to bother you. We're not going to, you know, continuously solicit you. I may throw you on a mailer one time and see if it bites, you know, whatever. But if I come across someone that sounds like they may be interested, a lot of times I'll pass it off to my wife because, again, she's a realtor. So rather than push them towards maybe selling it off market, they may want to try to get the highest value and list it with a realtor that way. So we have my wife, and at that point it goes into her CRM, and she has her own level of follow up for her.
Lester, I mean, what if they told you definitely interested in selling, probably sometime in the next 2 or 3 months? You know, not today. When do you think I would hear from you next? When would that next phone call be?
You'd probably hear from me about 3 weeks later to see if anything has changed and if there's any information that we could help you with. Is any home valuation that you would need? You know, if you want to get in touch with a reputable contractor to kind of see if there's any repairs that you want to do prior to, or if, you know, what your temperature is, if, you know, if you want to just go ahead and go under contract right now and let us help you get rid of it. You know,
so you're touching
every couple of weeks.
So you're touching them every 2-3 weeks, basically.
Absolutely.
For those 2-3 months.
Absolutely.
I gotcha. Awesome. After how many touches do you think on average you sign that deal?
Average 5 or 6.
5 or 6.
5 or 6 touches. They need to hear from you at least between 5 and 7 times. They don't get tired. Some of them get tired of hearing from you and they just answer. But a lot of times they're like, "Oh yeah, thanks for calling. I couldn't find your number. I wanted to." Whatever. So then it goes from there.
There you go.
That's great advice for those watching. 5 to 6 touches in that 2 to 3 month period.
100%.
So Lester, mindset. I mean, mindset in this business is really important. You know, like for me, I need to, you know, it's better for me to be on a certain routine in the morning, you know, and get my coffee or meditate or whatever. And what does your typical day look like?
My day is pretty much all centered around trying to keep myself positive so that positive things can happen. So I try to wake up between 6:30 and 7 o'clock. I will say a short prayer. If my wife is up, we meditate together. If she's not up, I'll kind of get up, maybe putter around the house for a little while. I don't drink coffee. She's a heavy coffee drinker. I'm not, but I will get up. I'll see if there's anything in the living room that needs to be straightened up from the night before. And then I'll kind of come and sit down in front of the computer and start checking emails. I'll look at, recently, now that I'm getting my real estate license, I'll do a couple of units on there to refresh myself and do a unit or two. But my typical day is wake up, say a prayer, jump on the computer, get the kids ready for whatever activities, check with my wife for her schedule, make sure that we're in sync so that, you know, she can get what she's got to get done. I will jump in the car and ride around my neighborhood and see if I see anything. And if I don't, I'll dip into DC, and then I get to work on that evaluation style that I told you. When I see a house, sometimes I use the Deal Machine app to just to capture properties. But I'll start my evaluation, get a couple of properties that I want to look at under my belt. I'm home by 2-3 o'clock. You know, get something in my system to keep my energy up, and then start more evaluation before I hit that skip trace, and then try to get some calls out.
Good. And what does your typical week look like? Are you working 7 days a week, pretty much? Or
yeah, I mean, yeah, unfortunately, yes. Yes.
That's what it turns into. It turns into.
Yeah,
I'm going to take this weekend off, and then you never know.
I'm supposed to be in Philadelphia right now. Let's put it like that.
Right.
I was supposed to take a ride, and I just said I'm going to stay and work. And it's a very active business. That's why I want to move more into the passives. Oh, there's other people that I wanted to shout out too, like Freetown Home Buyers. I believe that's Shakita James and her husband. They're doing their thing. Rachel Zalea, I know you had her and her husband on a couple weeks ago. So those are the people that I'm kind of like mirroring when I come to the types of deals and things that I want to get into. My weeks are spent learning as much as I can about properties, about what other investors are doing. I'm talking to Josh probably 3 or 4 times a week until like 11, 12 o'clock at night on Facebook. We're just talking about the market and where's it gonna go, what's the next thing. He's telling me what he's got going on. It's nuts. So
not about real estate. Just no.
Yeah, it's that. So that's a typical week. Just learning and continuing to move forward.
So when you get your license, what are your goals when you get your license?
I plan to focus on the investment side, even with my license. Let my wife continue to list properties, and I don't want to do the listings and the buyer side and all that stuff. I may get into some of that later on, but again, it's all about knowing your strength. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'll stick with the investor side as long as I can, and that's my goal.
And you're gonna be licensed in Maryland or DC, or?
I'm starting with DC, and I want to eventually be licensed in all 3, as well as New York too, because that's where I'm going.
Deal.
Guys, we are live here on DMV Dealmakers Saturday with Lester Ifill III, CEO and president of LFH Investment Group. If you got a question, please post it up. Lester, I love what you're saying today, and I think there's 3 things I've taken away so far from you, and I understand why you're so successful already. And I think people need to take note of this if they're watching. You have a process. You have a very clear process of how you do things. You're extremely consistent. You talked about even working like 6-7 days a week. And you have a huge network of people. I think those 3 things, your process, your consistency, and your network, has probably made you where you are today, and is going to take you to a whole other level in the future. I see you like killing the game right now, and even growing beyond this.
Thank you.
I do have a question though for you. So your negotiator, like once you sort of follow up, where does your negotiator enter this process in terms of dealing with the seller?
Well, the thing about the negotiator is that he's also good at finding his own deals as well. So I'm not always the person bringing the deals to the table, and 9 times out of 10 I can just focus on bringing the buyer. But he sets it off. He sets the tone, right? I mean, as the negotiator, he's the first contact. He's the person that's supposed to be able to make the seller or the agent, whichever situation we're in, feel comfortable with us and know that we're here to get the property. You know what I mean? We're here to get it off the books, whichever way we can. And honesty is the best policy. If we're not going to hold it, we're making sure it's known in writing that's what's happening. And it's a part of being a wholesale with integrity as well. I don't want people thinking that I'm buying a property if I'm not. I don't want people thinking that I'm flipping a property if I'm not. I try to be as honest as I can without killing the deal, but within reason. But yes, and that's another thing. I mean, as legitimacy with the license, so that it's understood that by law I have a fiduciary duty to be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
Good deal. So you're doing a considerable amount of volume right now. You must be really good in sales. So do you have any sales tips or techniques or anything? I know, I've heard follow up about 4 or 5 times. Follow up is key in any sales position, because everything, nothing bothers you more or me more than like a deal that I forgot about, or I didn't follow through because for whatever reason,
lost money.
Yeah, you lost money and you never get it back. And so you definitely have a lot of, techniques and a lot of systems. Can you share that a little bit? Your sales tips.
Without giving too much of the sauce out. Besides follow up, I would say, make sure your reputation is there. You're building with each deal, you build a reputation. I've had people in the group say, "Hey, yeah, I've heard about you. I didn't know. But when you do the right thing consistently, the right thing will come to you. And when people hear about you, they will say the same. One thing that I live on is my name is my name. So I don't want my name to ever be associated with bad business. And if that 9 times out of 10, I can get a customer. When I say a customer, I mean a buyer, an investor that's heard about me simply because they've heard good things about me. Maybe the deal's a little too tight, but just to get on my good side and do a deal with me, so that they may get a nice deal later on, they want to deal with me because they know I know what I'm doing and I'm going to do it the right way. Another tip is do what you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. Don't have something under contract, or don't say you have something under contract if you don't. Don't say you're going to show a property when you can't. Make sure everything that you're doing is you can stand on that, and I believe that those tips will help anybody that's trying to get into the world of wholesaling move forward.
That's excellent advice. One question for you, Lester. I mean, we're seeing like big cities like New York City, San Francisco. I just saw a statistic that rental lease demand in Manhattan was down 80% year over year for apartments. We're seeing this migration supposedly to suburbia. Are you seeing any hints of that in the DC market right now? Are there any telltale signs, or are we unique in this area?
Well, I think you know that DC is unique. It's really unique. It's hard to compare the DC market to other markets, even to Manhattan, because you've got government right here. So there's always going to be a different kind of draw to live in DC proper than say Manhattan, New York. Because if you live in Manhattan, if you can buy a $4 million condo in Manhattan, you can afford something really nice if in the sticks if you decide to. So it's a little different when you live and work in DC, and you may be making you're a government contractor making $250, or a lawyer charging $300 an hour, or Department of Defense, or whatever it is you do. Mm-hmm. Living in the district is always going to be a little bit more positive than it could be for another, just an average worker living in Manhattan.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Good. I know you have contractor management experience. Do you have a vision for using that piece in your business? Like
absolutely.
Or buy and hold properties down the road, or
absolutely
developing?
Absolutely. I plan on getting my general contractor's license. The projects that I've worked on, I've kind of GC'd them myself in a sense that I use a GC that will hire the work, but I manage that GC as best as I can for the project. So yes, I plan on, and then I've built some pretty good relationships. I plan on getting my GC license, but I also plan on utilizing that knowledge to help me get into the hold aspect as well, because there's nothing better than cutting costs in this business. So
definitely.
Lester, man, you have some phenomenal success already. By the way, you
Thank
got a
you.
great sense of humor too. So love
I
cracking,
do.
love cracking. But we got a lot of folks out there. I mean, they're struggling. They might be trying to do their first deal. They might be trying to do their fifth deal. What advice do you have for others who they want to be like you right now? What would you tell them to do? What's that biggest hurdle or challenge?
Increase your network. Increase your network. Learn as much as you can. I mean, that's all I can say that I did. Like I said, I'm self-taught. If you want, if it's within your budget and you can make it happen, get a mentor. Get a mentor. Find a good mentor. Get some references, and again, learn. That's the only thing that will separate you from another wholesaler is the amount of knowledge that you have. If I know, I've come across situations where people put a deal out, but they have no clue that you're putting a deal out for a possible condo conversion in a zoning that doesn't allow for condos conversions. So you have to know that stuff. You've got to. I shadowed a lot of builders, Justin Olwack, boat builders. These guys I've learned so much from these guys because when you present them a deal, they will then tell you the information that they need. That's the biggest thing. You need to get the information that the builders need in order to make an informed decision, and in turn that teaches you what to look for when you're searching for a deal. So learn from the buyers, learn from the builders, learn from the GCs what it takes to do different aspects of the job. Some people wonder, oh, what is underpinning? They make a huge big deal out of underpinning on the job. Yeah. Well, underpinning is priced by the foot. So learn how much the average price per foot for underpinning is. And then you can add that into your fee, or you can add that into your evaluations when you do your cost analysis. So again, learning is the biggest advice I could give anyone. Learn as much as you can.
Do you have a metric, just a rough metric on what folks are paying for deals in DC right now? Obviously it might depend between Northwest and Northeast. I don't know, but is it 82% ARV minus repair? Is it 75? Do you have a metric on roughly what number folks are paying right now?
There used to be. I would say there used to be a rough metric for like 70% of ARV at one point, minus repairs and then your fee. That's what they would teach you as traditional wholesaling, so that you account for that 30%.
Sure.
But DC is a little bit different because a lot of investors have to deal with more aspects of older homes and the cost of repairing certain things. I know a few investors that won't buy a deal if there's not a $300,000 spread, because they know what they have to deal with when it comes to closing costs. They know what they're going to have to do to renovate the entire property. A lot of these properties in DC, you can't just take and say, let me just redo the kitchen and the bathroom and I'll sell it for $900. It doesn't work like that. The end buyer in DC is very picky. So you've got to make sure that you do a full gut job on most properties, and those costs can vary per investor, and you need to know how, and you need to know that. And so the metric changes. I try to keep a good spread. If there's a 250 plus spread in certain areas of the district, maybe it'll work. 300 plus, even better. 9 times out of 10, there's nothing a GC or a buyer can't fix if they've got a spread of $300,000 between ARV and purchase price.
No, I agree with you, Lester. I mean, sort of what I see in our business and in other buyers is that, I'm curious if you see this too, but the more deals that buyer does, the less picky they are, and the lower the spread they're willing to do. Like if you got someone who's buying 2-3 deals a year, they might be really greedy for those 2-3 deals versus someone who's doing 20-30 deals a year. They might, in 80-90K, they might just do it.
Absolutely.
You're seeing that in your business as well?
I agree, 100%. I mean, there's investors that are doing 2 and 3 deals a year, but they need to have a 30-40% return on what they're doing, because one, how much money they may be paying for the money, and 2, they're not set up to handle any less of a risk, any less for risk wise. So yes, I agree with that 100%.
That's true.
So Lester, you're getting your realtor's license, right?
I am, yeah.
Want to get your contractor's license. Is there anything else you want to add to the business?
As far as license is concerned, I don't want a mortgage license or anything like that unless I need to. But no, I'm gonna learn everything I can, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna stop learning. I'm following Tim Brantz and Garrison Gilbert and John Carcone. I want to know everything there is to the real estate business, because I do, this is what I do. I don't have a pension right now. I do this full time, and I want to retire.
So are you looking at buy and holds or any trailer parks or anything like that? Anything exciting?
I mean, am I looking at them myself right now for evaluation? I would say yes. I have a couple of things that I'm looking to do more land.
Right.
I want to kind of build my own stuff, and that I'm looking at guys like Josh. There's some other investors that do this regularly in Maryland that I'm just kind of shadowing to learn from. But yes, I want to get into the holding, to buy and holds very soon, so that I can kind of have some cash flow to get to the next level.
Awesome. Lester, what is your 10-year vision, out of curiosity? Like, what will success for you 10 years from now look like?
15 units under management, 15 plus units under management, a wholesale business that I can let someone else run and just take a piece of. My wife continuing to do what she's doing at the level she wants to, opening brokerages or whatever she wants to do, and my kids doing well in school. I'm good. I'm not a greedy person. I'm very simple. I'm cool with just everybody moving to the next level gradually. 10 years, 15 units under management, thriving wholesale business as it needs to be. A few listings here and there, tons more relationships, stronger relationships with guys that I have relationships now, guys and girls. Yeah, that's it for me.
I think you got it. What if we 10x your vision? What does that look like? 150 units under management?
Yeah, something like that. I want to retire with like 150 plus units.
I would tell those of you watching today, I think one of the biggest mistakes folks do, they don't define what success looks like 10 years out or 5 years out. If you can't even define what you want, you'll never get it. You won't get it. I mean, for myself, 10 years ago, I just didn't want to have a government job anymore. I wanted to do real estate full time. That was the only thing same with you?
Yep, 100%.
In my head, that was all I was thinking, but I wasn't thinking like how many deals or what it would look like or what kind of deals.
I couldn't even fathom it at the time. When I thought about it, it was like a HGTV kind of vision. It was like, this is all I want to do. I just want to do this all day. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but this is what I want to do. And then I jumped into it and did it, and I failed. And I said, all right, I failed, but I'm never going to fail again. I'm going to keep going. And it's really all about that. It's really about literally saying to yourself, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. And at some point, this is all I'm going to do.
I agree.
My great grandfather bought. He had a cash and carry store in Manhattan, Kansas, and in his 50s, a friend of his and a couple other people told him to move to Washington. So he sold his cash and carry business for over $1 million in the 20s, and he bought land. He bought land here in Northern Virginia, basically from Prosperity Avenue to Seven Corners.
Okay.
And he didn't get into building. He got into land development. But they built, later on, they built some buildings. And we still have the apartment building today. It was built in 1955 on Route 50 in Falls Church.
Okay.
So, you can do things at any age, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you can have goals, to pick up and move at age 55 or something, whatever he was,
That's cool.
It's just most people they're like, okay, I'm going to sell my business, and he actually donated the first park in Fairfax County in 1951, and Fairfax County didn't have a park until 1955. So you're looking at land. It's a brilliant idea, because they never built any more land. You can always knock down the building, but to leave a legacy to your family down the road, when you're not here is what I think we're all here for.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Yes, sir. Amazing story. Wow.
Yeah. So your children are taken care of and their children,
Absolutely.
and I think that's what's important.
Yeah, it is. It is. You need to have a plan. You need to have a goal. And, for me, it was literally deciding that I'm not going to do anything else but focus full time on this. And that's when the success came. The success didn't come when I was just thinking about it and saying, oh, I want to do it. I want to do it. The success came once I made the commitment to put my back up against the wall in a sense and said, I'm just not going to, whatever comes my way, I'm just going to push through it. And this is what I'm going to do. And that's when things opened up.
Yeah, it definitely takes action. You need the action and you're doing
it. You need the action.
Yeah. Do you have any deals you're looking to promote right now?
Right now, not really. I have one. It's a condo, but I may keep it. That's one other thing. I'm getting into the whole. I may keep it. I'm putting it out there at a certain number. I got a couple of bites. I put it in a couple of DMs. It's a condo in Northeast. Nothing else. There's a lot of scarcity right now. I'm not sure if you guys are noticing, but
yeah.
I'm just because I've had some success doesn't mean I don't have the downs as well. My wife is hot. My wife's situation is hot, so I'm kind of helping her with hers because mine is slight. Mine is low. Inventory is very low. Sellers still want what they wanted, last spring, and buyers don't want to pay what they were paying in January. So
right. You know what I found is right now there's a 3-week inventory of homes in most areas in the DMV. A normal market is 6 months. So if nothing else got listed in 3 weeks, most of the homes would be gone.
It's amazing. On the MLS.
And the rates are so low that this is a great time to wholesale, to buy, to buy for long term. Anything you can do.
Got to get our lenders. Got to get our lenders to get back with us again, man. They're killing us.
I know.
We're pushing everybody out. We're like, we need more people in, but I understand the risk. We gotta weigh these.
Lester, I was actually going to ask you about that. Like 4 or 5 weeks ago, during COVID-19, some deals weren't moving very quickly. They were going for underprice. Lenders had dropped out. What are you seeing right now? Are deals right back to where they were? Are hard money lenders back in the game? What are you seeing right now?
I'm seeing some hard money lenders come back. I'm seeing a few come back. I'm still hearing about some tough terms, but for guys with experience, which is who I try to deal with as much as possible. I do like to deal with new investors as well, but a market like this makes it tough because you need someone that can close. But guys with experience have been able to kind of leverage their lenders to, give them favorable terms because of the business that they've already done with them. So I guess it just goes case by case. You have to ask the lenders more what they're feeling. My guy Jared from WCP, they're still lending. I know Congressional Capital is still lending. I know Templeview is still lending. I think in this market is going to be, it's going to be based on who the investor actually is and what they can do as to whether or not they're going to get the terms that help you get to the finish line.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And actually, could you put a metric on what's the average wholesale fee you're seeing sort of in DC right now?
The fees. Yeah, I mean, they range. They're still ranging. I'm still sitting for myself. I guess my average is like 10 to 15.
Okay.
I guess it's between 5 and 15. I've had a couple of hires, lowers, but between 10 and 15 is where you see it. I believe so. I know that there's some wholesalers that are still getting some astronomical fees and doing very well. I don't like to put limits on what a wholesaler makes. If the numbers work, the numbers work. I know somebody that's paying out a $200,000 assignment fee, but that's because the numbers work.
Sure.
And and I wish that I hope that everybody would think that way. Don't worry about what the wholesaler is making. Worry about the numbers. Do they work for you? If they work for you, then you shouldn't have a problem paying any fee that's attached to it, because
Yeah.
That means that there's going to be the higher the fee, it usually means it's the hotter is the deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
The hotter the deal is. Yeah.
No.
So Lester, what's the best way to reach you? Facebook, phone?
Yeah, you can call me, or you could go to my website, www.lfhinvestments.com. You can reach me on Instagram at LFH Investments GRP. Yeah, that's way to hit me.
LFH Investments
.com.
GRP on
Instagram.
Instagram.
GRP, yeah, like group. Yeah.
Sweet. Lester, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thanks, man.
You're killing it, man. You're bringing deals like Instacart right to the email box.
I'm gonna try to keep that going.
Keep doing what you do. We're looking forward to see where you end up in 10 years from now, but I think it's going to be bright and shiny, man, all the way. If you can let folks, what's your final thoughts for today? Closing statement.
Keep going, keep doing what you're doing. You're learning. If you're learning, if you're increasing your network, if you are, operating with integrity, if you are staying positive, keeping your mindset strong, like Jeff said, and you're doing your meditating and you're doing what you have to do to clear your head every day so that you can get up the next day and do the same thing and be consistent. If you're doing those things, keep doing them, and I promise you will see more success than I have seen, more success than any of us have ever been able to dream of. You all deserve it. I would say that if we can do a deal together, let's do it. I'm approachable. I'm a big guy, but I'm a teddy bear, so don't be afraid to just hit me up, say hello. If you have a deal, if you have something you need help on, if there's something, I'm not a guru, I'm not a mentor. I'm not gonna charge you for what, as long as it's not gonna take up hours of my time to help you out. If there's a quick question, hit me up. I'm always available. And again, I would like to thank you guys for having me. It was unexpected and welcome. And I hope that that everybody just keeps moving forward and everybody's staying safe in this COVID time.
Guys, thanks for tuning in today. We've been live with Lester Ifill III, CEO, President of LFH Investment Group. I'm Josh Cohen. I'm Jeff
Walsh.
And guys, stop watching Robert Kiyosaki. You don't need that man. We got a guy here that he's self-taught. He's killing the game. He's getting deals left and right on a weekly basis. And probably the most competitive market in the country, Washington, D.C.
I want to say one last thing too. I want to just appreciate you guys because you guys have been clear that you want to make sure that you provide content with more like diverse content with minority investors and all of that. So I know we talked about this offline, Josh. You guys are going to have a lot more of the minority investors that are in the group on the show. They deserve to be showcased. They need to be showcased because everybody here is here to eat and here to, spread love and do business. And that's what this is about. So again, thank you for that. Thank you guys for that.
100%, man. And guys, if you need a mentor, can they reach out to you, Lester, if they need help?
Yeah, reach out, man. Reach out. We can talk about it. Reach out. We can talk about it.
Again, LFHinvestments.com, at LFH Investments GRP on Instagram. Reach out to Lester. He'll help you walk you through the deal. Lester, you're an inspiration, man. Thanks so much. Let's do it again soon.
Thank you, Lester.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Jeff.